Michigan, 1 hour and 19 minutes. The Michigan lawsuit was not a Trump lawsuit. It was a citizen lawsuit. They filed seeking injunctive relief. What else? Restraining order. Ultimately, now I did a vlog on it. Everybody can go watch that if they want. But ultimately, the judge dismissed the lawsuit. I say on a technicality. It was not on the substance of the lawsuit. The bulk of the dismissal of the lawsuit, was that the plaintiffs have alternative remedies such that the injunctive relief is not warranted. It's not for the courts to get involved. And what did they say? What's the word when the benches are active? There's a word for an activist judge. Whatever. It's not for the courts to solve the problem, to craft the solution. It's already in the law. So if you want an audit, the law provides for pinpoint audits or county audits, and the court has no business intervening. That's fine. So that's basically to say we didn't have jurisdiction really because the legislation provides an answer that the courts are not supposed to get involved with. My question is, knowing that that's going to be the answer from the court, why go into an assessment of the evidence and provide so much opinion on the evidence when ultimately the judge could have assessed the evidence the exact opposite way, come to the exact same conclusion, and still dismissed the lawsuit for the same reason? That's where I got the feeling that for anybody who didn't read this judgment, the judge basically says, you're 7 affiants filing affidavits in support of the motion who think they saw things, who did see things, who saw a truck show up with out-of-state plates to deliver ballots at 4 a.m. through the back door of the counting room on the 4th. You have affiants saying this. You have the judge saying, I don't like your affiants. I don't trust them. One of them was posting, theories on Facebook posts, so his credibility's shot. The other person who saw an out-of-state plate on a truck, it was a rental truck. You're ascribing sinister motives. Basically, the judge said, I don't trust any of the affidavits or the affiants in support of the motion, and I trust all of the defendant affidavits, which were Democrat Party affidavits. Am I wrong in thinking that the judge did and said all of this, says push it back to the government now, but here's what I just said, and here's how I colored all of the evidence that was presented by the plaintiffs?
That's exactly what he did, and it was a political hit job. And it's not a surprise. I mean, one of the weaknesses of election contest litigation is that in most state contexts, you have to file suit in state court in the state capital, the county, wherever the state capital is. Of course, that is these days a heavily Democratic audience almost exclusively. And so you're seeing judges that were very tolerant when election contests have been brought on behalf of Democratic candidates suddenly become overtly hostile and completely state deferential when it's a challenge to a potential Democratic presidential election. And I think they've approached all of it the wrong way. As they should have looked at it as, if you really don't believe any fraud occurred, then have it be as open and transparent account as possible to prove it to the world beyond any question. Don't behave like the Kennedy, the Kennedy assassination committee. Don't behave in a secretive, surreptitious manner that encourages and incentivizes doubt. Do the thing. You're a judge, for crying out loud. I mean, the point of a judge is to instill confidence in the objectivity and neutrality of the law, and you as a law decider, adjudicator. These judges are doing everything the opposite way. They're taking pot shots that, if I knew nothing about the case and I just read the judge's ruling, I would say, wow, this is a biased judge. I mean, that's not how you should write an opinion if you're a judge, especially in an election contest. If you'd say, hey, I see why they thought this. Here's where I don't think it necessarily goes there. But the other thing is, he could have just, as you note, he didn't need to say anything about any fact. You'd say, look, the remedy isn't here. So when he went out of his way to take pot shots at people who clearly reported accurate information, he was trying to be dismissive of it. I'm sorry, it's weird when you rent a truck to have ballots go from one place to the next in the middle of the night. Maybe it's normal in Detroit, but it ain't normal in the rest of America. So so I think the over-the-top approach, I've seen this in Law and Crime and other people who reported on the Savannah suit. And it's like, look, yeah, there may be limitations to what those suits can do. There may be the inability to get the relief that they want. Maybe they can't prove up all the claims that they have. But treat these people with respect and honesty so that everybody can have confidence in the election and have confidence in the judiciary. And sadly, I'm seeing neither being done, particularly in the legal press. The legal press is anxious to take little snide pot shots at people. And they still haven't figured out from 4 years of Trump that laughing and mocking these people does not instill confidence in you, the press. If you don't want Alex Jones to be twice as popular, behave like an honest press, not a dishonest press. I became involved in this without going into details of how, because of things like this. They're treating ordinary, everyday people who have sincere, straightforward questions like they're jokes and crackpots. And it's a dishonest judicial process that's doing it, dishonest executive process, and a dishonest press. And someone needs to push back on it. So, I'll be one of them.
And just so that everybody can appreciate this, I didn't say it in my vlog. The judge could have literally not included in the Michigan lawsuit where the judge said, you're the former assistant attorney general, his knowledge paled in comparison to the other affiant. And maybe if you had attended the pre-election walkthrough, you would have known better. You could have asked your questions then. Incidentally, I did something I did not know at the time I made the video. Apparently they weren't invited and they didn't know of the walkthrough, so they couldn't have done it anyhow. But the judge could have not said anything that he said in the 10 pages of that judgment and simply said, I'm sensitive to your case, but you have other remedies under law such that injunctive relief is not warranted. Could have been one paragraph. And I'm reading it, and that right now, whoever takes this case, when the same petitioners go to the government and say, we want an audit, now they've got sort of, what's the word? It's not res judica. It's not over. They've got a judgment now saying, look, well, you guys are lacking credibility. You didn't know this. You didn't know that. So we're going to take your entire complaint a lot less seriously. And we have the court's blessing to do so. So if it wasn't obvious in reading it, that was my reflection on the lawsuit. And knowing more now than I knew then, I didn't even know that some of the conclusions were hotly contested by the affiants and by the petitioners. But anybody thinking, I don't know what the geography of Michigan is that you would have had to, the rental truck would have had an out-of-state plate. I appreciate that the rental car companies often have cars that go from one state to the other and they just, leave them at different locations. I would still have questions, notwithstanding what the judge said. A rental truck showing up through the back door at 4 a.m. with ballots, that is recognized by the judge. That raises some questions in my mind. And an honest press, like you say, Robert, would probably be asking those questions as well, even if the answers are totally explainable, as opposed to saying anybody who denies this is promoting fake news, slap a warning on their tweets and call them all sorts of names to discredit them. That was my rant. That lawsuit, it's not going to get appealed. It seems, I think in law, the conclusion of that judgment is the correct one. They have recourse under the law and they should avail themselves to that, failing which they can maybe go back to court.
Yes, and I think, the problem is our system is designed so that election officials are the best situated to give the necessary remedy. The problem is, in my view, and hopefully this reform comes out from this whole process, and it's one reason why I think it deserves public vetting. It's usually some sort of crisis whereby people recognize a problem and then fix it. And it's unfortunate that it requires a crisis to get there. But I hope the legislatures, and some of this is on these Republican legislatures, they fail to put in meaningful checks on this process. Many of them greenlit some of these crazy rules that got done. So let's install a real, meaningful, transparent process for elections in the future, where recounts and recanvasses and audits are done automatically all the time in every election. And they're done in a public, transparent manner that has clear rules that everybody has to live by. And I hope that will be part of the product of this process, because it's showing how much we need it. A lot of people are shocked. I think like what happened to those Michigan litigants, and I'm seeing it in a wide cross section. I forget people are not as informed as the Viva Barnes live stream audience is as to what our court system is like, as to what our politicians are like. I see a lot of people with naivete. Oh, just go to court and they'll correct it. That's unfortunately not what has happened historically when it involves major challenges to institutional power. And so you have to fight tooth and nail for it. And sometimes you need a scandal to force its change or moderation. So I've always, people have asked me, okay, what I think is the end game here. I will quote a book that I read when I was a kid. I had two favorite authors when I was 12 years old. My father had passed away some months before, and so these were sort of my substitute mentors. One was Robert Kennedy's book, To a Newer World, his 1968 campaign text, which I found very inspiring. And the other was Art of the Deal by Donald J. Trump. And one of my favorite statements in the book by Trump was, hope for the best, plan for the worst. So I always think that is a good strategy. So I plan for a system not responding to these problems, but that is no reason to forfeit in advance, because the only way you change the system is by being naive and idealistic and believing irrational things, like I'm going to ask a corrupt system to do something right, because sometimes it actually happens. And so that's the only way change happens. So I think it's a good approach going forward. I don't want people invested in a particular outcome that might not be the most likely outcome, while at the same time recognizing, okay, maybe I won't get everything, but we'll get something, and it's worth fighting for. The old Dylan Thomas, rage against the dying of the light. Don't go gently into that good night. I think that's a wise parable to live by. So the worst parts of this system have come to bear. I was afraid they would, but I'm still slightly shocked by it. That the press gaslighting everybody, the courts acting like political activists rather than objective neutrals, the Congress trying to hide under every bushel they can. It's been unfortunate seeing everybody try to abscond from their obligations, but that's no reason why we can't do all that we can to try to see the process through.
And it's a terrible thing. Like I don't know what's the word. I don't want to say a virgin. I was wet behind the ears when I first started analyzing these lawsuits coming out of the states. I was always brought up or told, you hear that the courts are politicized and the judges, Democrat judges go one way, Republicans go the other. I was naive, wet behind the ears, and didn't fully appreciate the degree to which it's almost predictive. And I don't want to make jokes in my videos about, I was going to make a joke that the judge in Michigan, his name wasn't Sullivan, but I don't want to look like I'm tainted, corrupt, or cynical as a result, and just explain it, and everybody can come to their own conclusions, and I have my own opinion. But yeah, you're reading this. There's a vested interest in not exposing the issues because it will have retroactive degrading effects on the structure and the system that people think works properly now. And if you realize that it's all been a house of cards or a sham for decades, it can cause problems. And so you have these institutions that have to continue to prop up the image of a functional system, which gives them a vested interest to downplay, undermine, write off, and brush under the carpet problems which are coming to light now. The media pressure is over the top. The big tech censorship, at the same time, I don't want to say you have to be blind to not see it, but you have to have you have to be very forgiving to not question it, because it's the spike of the censorship of the big tech in the weeks leading up to the election, and now it's exponential. And the media trying to control what it is that you can see, hear, and know, and to tell you what to believe, it's amazing. And it should cause everybody to be cynical. It should cause everyone to ask a few questions. And I feel like I'm the one drinking the Kool-Aid to some extent. Like, I feel like I'm the crazy one because I have these conversations with people who don't even fully appreciate this, who are still within the matrix, so to speak. And it's a weird thing. I feel like it's been an evolution. But, seeing the judge do what render that decision, I was like, why did he even do that? Just dismiss it right away. Don't say anything. Don't taint the rest of the process, because they're going to have one. When I see the media, creating a situation that they cannot undo, which is going to cause them to double down, triple down, quadruple down, so that they don't get blamed for what might happen and for misleading. And people who don't even know what they don't know to know what they're being told is half the story at best. So I got this comment up here. All rental trucks are registered to Arizona for tax avoidance purposes. Possibly, but I don't know. I rented a truck in California. No, it was not a truck. It was a car. Definitely wasn't Arizona plates.